Okay, so if you want to join me and watch together, just click that link. And we're gonna watch this. So I'll wait till well, two of you at least. There should be two people here. I only see one. Me also stream my screen. So which one of you is this? Is that Keith or Darwin? User LRGQE. Okay, now you're both here. Okay, let's watch this video real quick because we're gonna be using the either command prompt, or most likely we'll be using git bash, or I think if you're on a Mac, the Windows terminal uses the same commands as git bash. I think they're both using the bash shell, so they should have the same commands. But let's watch this video. This guy sort of explains it, the difference between all these terms, because it's very confusing, I think, even for experienced developers. So let's just play this.
Important video. If you do not want to look like a fool on the internet, if you're a new user to Linux, or if you're doing any kind of development stuff, or even if you're using Mac OS, frankly, there are some basic terminology that in my time on the internet, I have realized that people serially misuse some basic concepts. So I want to make them clear, specifically about the terminal. What is a terminal? What is a shell? What is bash? What is, what's a command line? What is a prompt? Those are all technically different things. And a lot of people who are new use those terms incorrectly, and it actually gets them into a lot of confusion because they don't know how to ask for things, and other people will hear them misusing terms and think they're dumb. Okay, so I'm going to explain, if you're a new user, or even if you're not and you secretly have something to learn that you don't know about, I'm doing this video for you. So here's where the confusion arises. I just brought up a window. Well, this window is a terminal emulator. It also is running, it might be running a shell like bash. Usually, if on your machine, if you don't know what you're running, you're probably running bash. In my case, I'm running ZSH. So I brought up ZSH, I brought up a terminal, I brought up a command line, and I brought up a command prompt. All of those different things are different, and it's important to know the difference between them. Firstly, the terminal is really short for the terminal emulator, because this little program, the actual window that comes up that you have stuff running in, that is your terminal emulator, and that's emulating what a old classical terminal looks like, where you put commands in and stuff like that. Theoretically, of course, terminal emulators might be doing other things in addition to that. But the terminal emulator is the program, the window that is floating on your screen, okay? That is different from bash, okay? That is absolutely not the same thing as bash. So the terminal emulator is the window. Bash is the language that runs in most terminal emulators, okay? Or at least you have it start by default when you bring up a terminal emulator in most cases. So if you want to know what you're running, what language you're running, you can type in echo $0. In my case, I'm running ZSH. But if you don't know what you're running, you're probably running bash, so you can see that. Or in the weird circumstances, you might just be running bin sh without anything in front of it. Although if you're running that, you probably know that you're running that. Unless, I think bin sh is the default on like Ubuntu, if you're root or something like that. But anyway, so the difference between bash and ZSH, which are languages, and a terminal is it's a very important distinction. Let me put it this way. Let's say, here's a newbie question. A newbie question that would fall under the definition of a stupid question. How do I copy and paste in Bash? That is a dumb question. Let me explain why. It's not, Bash is a language. You don't copy and paste in a language. You copy and paste, the bindings for your copying and pasting come from your terminal emulator. It is specific to this graphical program that's running, and you can copy and paste things from it and input it into whatever you're doing. That has nothing to do with Bash. It has nothing to do with the shell. So if you ask a question like, how do I scroll up in Bash? Or how do I copy and paste? Or something like that. Or how do I change the background color of Bash? Those do not make any sense. Bash is merely a language that often runs in command prompts, okay? So in my terminal emulator, if you want to, so my terminal emulator happens to be my build of ST, the simple terminal. And in my terminal emulator, if I want to copy something, I can highlight it and I can press Alt and C and I copy it. So if I want to paste that in, I can press Alt V and that's how I paste. That is probably not going to be the exact bindings on your machine. I think most terminal emulators will have Control Alt C and Control Alt V, or sometimes Shift Insert will be another way of pasting something. One thing you will never ever see though is, here's an example. Okay, so I'm going to have a little command. So sleep 5 and echo LMAO. So that's going to sleep, wait for 5 seconds, and then print LMAO. So on all Unix-based operating systems, you know that if you have a command that takes some time to run, like this one, I can press Control-C, and Control-C is going to stop whatever it's doing, okay? So since that has been taken since when, shells were first invented, you are not going to have that as your binding for pasting something in, ever, in any kind of terminal emulator. Because basically, Bash has this setting, has Control-C, as a binding that it's always going to have. So no terminal emulator in its right mind would ever bind that same key. Okay, but keep in mind those are different things. So what else? So another thing that people ask about is this little thing here. What's this thing before? Well, actually, to be clear, what's a command line? Okay, a command line is the line that we're actually typing on here. So a command line, it isn't just about terminal emulators. It isn't just about Bash or anything like that, because I could open up another terminal emulator. I'll do this. So again, ST is my terminal emulator, and I'm going to open an instance running Python. Over here, I can type commands that are in the Python language as opposed to Bash, and it will run them. This is a command line interface on the left, and this is a command line interface on the right. What's the difference? They're running different languages. The one on the right is running ZSH, or in your case it might be Bash. The one on the left is running Python. Now, languages like Bash, there's a reason we use languages like Bash for every once in a while. Okay, here's what happens. This is another noob thing, and I can't help but laugh at it. There are a lot of people who will be like, they'll take Computer Science 101, they'll learn some Python, and they'll be like, I like Python. I want to have Python as my default program that I run in my terminal emulator. And it's such a silly thing, even if you love Python. Languages like Bash, Shell, which is the original, Bash adds some stuff on, and ZSH adds some more stuff on there. Those are kind of language. I'm not going to go into it that much in this video, but those are languages that are uniquely built to be very nice and terse for a command line interface. Python is really a language that is supposed to be written in a file and then you run it all as one thing in a script. It is not as efficient at getting things done on the command line. Specifically, Python, to put functions in functions, it's a huge pain, but piping on the command line is a much easier thing. Either way, we'll talk about that in another video. Let's keep it to the basics. So anyway, both this and Python have a command line interface. Another question you might want to have, what is this thing here? This little color stuff with my name in it. This is just, it goes by different names. You can just call it a prompt sometimes. And it's merely decorative, although sometimes people will have information in it depending on what kind of shell you have. But this is something specific to each one of your shells. So what happens is when you install an operating system, when you open Bash, Bash is going to look at a config file for all the information that, it's going to run at the very beginning. So it knows what kind of configuration you want. And one of the things you can change is this little prompt here. Now, it's sometimes called a PS1. And the reason it is because if we set the variable PS1, let's say we set it to lol, what that does is it changes your prompt to lol. So that's what PS1 means. Okay, we can change it, or we can say PS1 equals, just some text, something like that. And in that case, it's going to set, PS1. It's going to set your prompt to whatever that is. Now, how I got all this color here is because on some shells, like ZSH, you have the ability to set your PS1 to different color codes. You can do this on Bash as well, but the syntax of it is not exactly the same. So when you say something, the reason I bring this up is because a lot of people will say something like, people will install my terminal emulator, which is this thing here, which of course comes with things like bindings for scrolling up and pasting and copying things. But one thing it does not have is this prompt, because prompts are always built into shells, and in your shells configuration file, that is where you set what your prompt is going to be. You just say it, make my PS1 look like that. So a lot of people will install my terminal emulator and ask me, Luke, I installed your terminal, but it doesn't look like that. And they're talking about this thing here. That's not how, that has literally nothing to do with the terminal emulator whatsoever. These prompts are set in shells like Bash. And if you want to look how to change them, look up how do I change my Bash prompt. It actually is a sort of complicated syntax. They even have Bash prompt generators you can look up, but it has nothing to do with the terminal emulator. So anyway, that's in general the confusions that people have. That is, mostly it's a failure to distinguish the language that runs in a terminal emulator from the terminal emulator itself. Terminal emulators can run lots of different things. They can even run, let's say I run LF, which is a file manager. They can run lots of different things that are not command prompts that run a specific language like Bash or Shell or ZSH or anything like that. So when you have problems, I'm doing this video just so you know how to ask about them. Don't say funny things like, oh, how do I don't know, again, copy and paste in Bash, scroll up in Bash. Those have nothing to do with Bash. Anyway, so hopefully you learned something. If you're a noob, or even if you're a veteran user who's been using words incorrectly for years and it's total cringe, hopefully you learned something. That's about it for today. I will see you guys next time.
Okay, so I know that might have helped you. But okay, so again, when I open command prompt, this window, that's the user interface. And when I type in commands like make dir, well, cd desktop, make dir, and I create a folder like folder 1. The interpreter or the language is what determines what I type here, like make dir. It has nothing to do with this program itself. So if I open git bash, this is another window, again, like just a program that you can type into, or it's a user interface. Okay, but this one uses bash. And what was that command the guy did? The $0. I forgot what he typed that it showed. It was somewhere
So this
here.
is a highly important video. New brought up a really short terminal looks, unless I think Ben, it's a very important. Anyway, without, you're probably running Bash, okay? But if you don't know what you're running, you're
echo
probably
$0.
running Bash, so you can see that.
Echo
Or in the weird circumstances, you
$0.
might just be running bin sh
Yeah, and here it says
without anything
bin
in front of
bash.
it.
So
Although
I guess that proves that git bash right now is using that bash shell or language. So the shell or the language, that's what determines what types of commands you can put in here. Like I can type in clear here to clear that. I don't know if that's exactly tied to. It's also possible the window itself could have its own like built-in commands that you can type in and it'll understand. But if I type clear in this one, it's not going to know what I'm talking about. I have to type CLS because I guess because this is not using bash. This is using um, I guess it's Windows own built-in shell. Uh, I don't know what they call it though. I think it's command dot com or it might just be command prompt, the same name as the program itself. Um, but in case you have a Mac computer, most of us have Windows or Mac. I doubt any of you have Linux. Maybe you do. Who knows? But even if you have Linux, you're gonna mostly likely be using Bash. So, I mean, if you have a terminal open, you could type echo 0 or $0 and see if it shows Bash here or some other language or shell. Again, the language is shell is the language. Okay, so shell is another name for, I guess, the language that or the program that's interpreting whatever commands I type in here. So I type in a command, it gets sent to the shell, which in this case is bash, and that interprets the command and then spits something back out. Okay. You're gonna probably wanna install git bash if you're on a Windows, because we're gonna use it to learn about Git, which is the distributed version control system. So, do we have a question? Yeah, Aiko, if you're trying to do the assignment from yesterday, you can use the example I gave you. By the way, I updated that example. Where is it? Assignment 1 landing page. This one. I just changed it so that it slides up instead of fading out, because I think sliding in and out just looks better. If I slide down, it goes away. I slide up, it comes back. That was a quick, easy change. Um. Anyways, so yeah, this guy explains it pretty well, I think. But I did prepare some additional notes. Maybe it will help a little bit more. Okay, so what's a command line interface? It's a text-based user interface used to view and manage computer files. So a program on your computer that lets you create, move, rename, navigate, or delete files and folders and run programs. It's an alternative to a graphical user interface or GUI. So this is a graphical user interface. I'm dragging this folder. I could right click and create a new folder, select it and press delete to get rid of it, or create new files in here. I could navigate through my computer through here. So that's a graphical user interface, and then the command line interface is just an alternative. Okay. Where's the notes? So on Windows, you might know it as command prompt or Windows PowerShell. In PowerShell, I guess it's a more advanced graphical or uh, not graphical command line interface, but I think this just has like a bunch of built-in functions. If you type in help, let's type help, and then I think we have to type in name of a command, and then it'll give us more specific help on that. Let's try typing help. Oh, and looks like, see, right now it's um not letting me type anything because right now I'm like basically inside something that's running. I need to quit, so press Control C usually to exit out of something that's running, and then I can type again. Or it might be Q. You might press the Q button if you get stuck. You're trying to type and it's not letting you. Try Q or Control C. And that's why that guy was saying you don't usually use Control C to copy and paste into here because it does something else, but it actually does work in here. When I press Control V anyway, can lets me paste into here. If I highlight this and do Control C, it actually copies that too. So he's wrong that he's saying no command line interface is gonna let you do Control C. But I think that's from my options. If you right click, you can do well, here's the option: use Control Shift C V as copy paste. I don't have it checked, so maybe that's why it's letting me use Control C and Control V. Um, but Control C is used for other things, so it's used to exit out of something. Like, for example, if you're running a server, usually you run a server so that, let's say you want to be able to look at your PHP website, or I don't know, it's a React website using Node.js. Usually you create a server, you type in a command like npm start. Usually it'll just be one of the default starting scripts, and whenever you type that in, it creates a local server for you. Um, right now I don't have one running, but when it creates that local server for you, this window will be busy. You won't be able to type anything until you exit out of that, and then the server stops. Okay, so to exit out of it, usually you press Control C to stop um the server. I can show you an example, I guess. I think here's just a starter project with something called Gatsby. So I'll just type um, code dot to open it. Okay, so most Node sites that you create using Node.js, using something like React or Angular, they're most likely gonna have a package.json, and then it's gonna have some scripts in it like build and develop. So when I type npm run develop, that's when I type npm run start, it does npm run develop. So I could type npm run develop, or I could type npm run start, and that's just an example of like how I would start my server, and then it'll do its thing. And by the way, VS Code has its own built-in terminal, as you can see here. So this is another alternative to this, or the PowerShell or Git Bash. Um, you have this here built into VS Code, and you can see here I've got this HTTP colon localhost. So it says you can now view your site in the browser. So it's running a server right now. So if I try to type something here, and it doesn't really let me, okay, until I press Control C, and then it's back to here again. I can start typing. So that's why usually you don't use Control C for copy and pasting. And then, yeah, if you go to properties, you might have the option here to use Control Shift C. And usually for pasting, like if I try to paste something in here, let's say I type something, highlight it, and press Control C. Uh, Control V is not really pasting it. Like it's typing in an up arrow and a V when I press Control V. So usually insert will paste, or actually I think I just checked. Since I checked this, I think now I have to use Control Shift V. So I type Control Shift V, it pastes. But if I uncheck that, then I think the default is using um, Shift insert or Alt insert, or I don't know. Control Shift V. Copy that again. Insert. Yeah, well, I don't know why sometimes it doesn't. So now when I press insert, I'm pressing the insert button near the, where it is the home button, delete, the above the arrow keys on the keyboard. That's used to paste right now. So, um, those shortcuts or those commands that I'm using, um, that's tied to this user interface for this, or this git bash, right? So git bash or whatever interface you're using is gonna have its own little shortcuts. Um, any questions? Okay, well, your connection's no good, but hopefully you can hear me. And let me zoom in on this so you could. It's already zoomed in, but you could read this, right? I'll include this in the OneDrive. Let me put it up there right now. Why am I copying this? Let's go to. Well, actually, I could just stick it in here in Discord. Okay, so you could click on that, and then you'll have the same notes as me right here. It's a PDF. Okay, so again, command line interface is a text-based user interface used to view and manage computer files. Um, Alternative to a graphical user interface. On a Mac, I don't know why I put an X there. On a Mac, you might know it as terminal. Okay, other names for it: command processor, command line user interface. Typically looks like a black window with a blinking prompt in which you can type characters. Right, that's what most of these look like, is white text, and you get this blinking thing here. Um, Git bash might be a little more colorful in some places, but it's just white text blinking. And even in Visual Studio Code, when you bring up your terminal, just black screen, white text. Well, in this case, it's not blinking, but that's usually how you know you're in a terminal. um, so the MS-DOS operating system is a command line interface. MS-DOS was the old, before Windows and all these graphical user interfaces. You were forced to use a command line interface. Okay, so the MS-DOS operating system was a command line interface, and some programming languages support a CLI. Like the guy mentioned, he was able to, you could use Python that way. Okay, so that's a command line interface. So what's a shell? Again, shell is something like bash, right? It's the interpreter. So it's another program. They call it a shell program because it's the outermost layer around the operating system. But that's the interpreter. That's what's determining what kind of commands you're putting in there. So user types input into the command line interface. Could be git bash, could be PowerShell, could be the command prompt. And then the CLI sends to shell, and the shell generates output, sends output back to the CLI. Okay, so examples of shell, some that I found, I just did some research on the internet to find these. I've never used any of these except I guess bash and whatever this is. I have no idea which one this one is using. I don't know if it's PowerShell. Um, but yeah, bash, fish, ZSH. I think that's the one the guy in the video was using. KSH, SH, TSH. I think SH is the original shell. And you have CMD, Yori, Fordos, command.com. I think actually, I don't know, if I type con host and command prompt, I think this is the same thing, but I can't do the echo $0 here, I don't think. Yeah, it doesn't tell me the way it does in bash. I was able to type echo and then $0 and it would tell me what language or what shell I'm using, but in this one it doesn't, so I have no idea how to find out. I tried googling it too. I still can't figure out. Um, so so what's bash? Bash, again, born again shell is what it stands for, because it's popular default shell or command language interpreter on Linux and Mac OS. So it's called bash or born again shell. It's a pun on Stephen Bourne, the author of the direct ancestor of the current Unix shell, SH. Um, Developed by Brian Fox and released in 1989. And then these are some common bash commands. So you could echo to print something out, ls list directories, touch creates a file, make dir create a directory, uh, grep or grep searches, cd change directory, move will move or rename a directory, and remove dir will remove directory or mdir. And then some of these work in non bash terminals, like this one. Yeah, no, this is for sure not using bash, I don't think, but I don't know what it is using. But I can still do echo and it will do what it's supposed to. If I cd into the desktop on this one and I try typing ls, it doesn't know what ls is. So in this one, I have to type dir to get a list of directories. So you could see it's not the same. But if this was git bash and I'm on the desktop, I can type ls and it'll list everything. Dir also works. So this one does both dir and ls. Um, but again, that could be because this command line interpreter might have like some built-in commands, or it might be able to understand some Windows commands. I'm not sure if you type dir in a on a Mac terminal, I don't know if it'll work there too. Okay, and what's Unix? I just got this from Wikipedia. Family of multitasking, multi-user computer operating systems that derive from the original AT&T Unix, whose development started 1970s at the Bell Labs Research Center by Ken Thompson, Dennis Ritchie, and others. Almost all operating systems besides Windows are considered Unix-like. So Android, Mac, Linux, um, Xbox, and Windows PCs use, I think it's called NT. So the old Windows, instead of Unix, it used, what was it called? DOS. I think it was DOS, but now it's NT. So I'm sure you've heard of Windows NT. So I think starting from Windows XP, they're using like a different and what this is like um it's like the kernel of the computer, which is like the most basic program that the computer runs, like right on top of the hardware. Um, so if it's Unix based, most Macs and Linux and Android and iOS, they use Unix like kernel. So at the most basic level, they're similar in that way, and Windows has its own thing. Um, so that comes up sometimes, so it's good to know. Um, and because Bash is born again shell, which is a pun on Stephen Bourne, author of Direct Ancestor of the current Unix shell. So that's why I brought up what Unix is. Uh, anyway, so that's all you need to know about that, I guess. We're just gonna be doing mostly Bash commands: echo, ls, touch, make dir. Probably not. I don't think we're gonna be searching, but CDs, moving, remove directory. Um, we'll be using those mostly. Um, you could use command prompt if you want, but just know instead of ls, you're gonna do dir. Pretty sure touch won't work in command prompt either. Touch hello dot text. Nope, it's not gonna work. So touch would be to if you want to create a new file. If I want to create like an empty file, I think here what I could do is like echo um dot hello. I wonder if that created something. Let me oops, there. Did I create something here called hello? I don't think so. Maybe it's because I forgot to put the extension. Or there. I keep typing ls. Yeah, so it's actually there. Hello and hello text. I actually did create them. But you see this 2 here? That means it's taking up. I don't know if that means 2 bits or 2 bytes. Probably 2 bits. I don't know. It means it's taking up some space. It's not completely empty. So if I go into C users David, there's hello.txt. And the fact that I can go down to the next line just tells me that this isn't empty. So it created a sort of empty text file, but not really empty because it put in an empty line in there. But if you were to do with bash, if I do touch hello.txt, this one you can see I can't go down to the next line. So it actually did create like an empty, completely empty text file. If I do ls, let's try dir. I guess it doesn't list the file size here, but let's do cd desktop. So here it said 2 next to the hello.txt. Here if I do dir, we get a 0 next to it, so it's actually empty. So kind of like it's easier to do that, to create an empty file in Bash. You just have to say touch and then type in the file name. In Windows, it's not as obvious. I think on Windows, what do we have to do? I thought I wrote it down here, but I guess I didn't. But it has to do with the arrow. I forgot exactly how. but not important. I mean, you're not going to be creating empty files and needing them to be completely empty. That's like a rare thing you might have to do. But I was just trying to make a point that, they're not all exactly the same, and there isn't exactly an equivalent for everything. Um, so it's better if we all use the same thing and just use git bash, since you're gonna have to install git anyway, and it just comes with git bash, so might as well. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. If you don't have questions on command line interfaces, you're satisfied with how much you know about that. Let's um start talking about Git. Okay. I could put a video on Git, but let me see if I could explain it. I might need Illustrator. So what is Git? So Git is a distributed version control system. So it's a system for keeping track of files and changes to files. Um, so you create or you have an empty Git repository, let's say. You can initiate additional repositories. A repository is just like a directory with a Git directory would be something with um, the Git like files that are necessary for Git to be able to keep track of your files and changes. Um, you would initiate a Git repository, so it'll just be an empty folder. Well, not completely empty. There will be a hidden file in there that has all the Git files, and then you're able to give it commands like um, git add or git push, and basically it's just a system for keeping track of your files and saving the history of everything. Um, might explain it better if we actually start using it, because these three boxes are not explaining anything. So your Git repos can have um, many commits. A commit is basically um, like saving your files and updating, updating the latest version of your file. Um, and then you can have branches that come off of these. Like if you have additional people working on a project, let's say we start with, this is our initial commit, we have an empty folder, we create something. We're satisfied with what we did. We created a file in there called file one. Let's make it white so we can see it. So yeah, you start your project, okay, and then Git is keeping track of this, right? You have a file one in there, and then you make some changes to file one. Maybe you add a second file, file two, um, and then if you're gonna keep all those changes, you do a git add and then a git commit, and then once you do a git commit, your branch grows. That's your main branch, right? It's gonna keep growing. Every time you make new commits, you do something new. You make a commit, um, and then you can have additional branches that come off of this. So if someone else is working on a file and they're adding like a completely new feature, um, maybe it's not a text file, now they're adding file 4.css or something, and they're doing their own thing. They're working on something. They're working on their project. They're making little updates to it every now and then finally, whenever that new feature is complete and it's working properly, they can merge it back to the main branch, bring it back to the main branch, and then other people can again branch off of that and add their own features. And when they're done with that, they could you know bring it back to the main branch. Um, let's do a couple examples because it's hard to explain without a video, and the actual Git website um, might have, let's see, Git, not GitHub, just Git. Git. Um, I guess they don't really have thought they would have like a nice diagram or graph. But this is the website git-scm. By the way, that's where you're gonna download Git from. So let me give you this link. Open Discord. So you want to go there and you're gonna click on download 2.3.2 for Windows. I could download it again, I guess. I mean, I already have Git installed, but I'll do it again just so you can see the installation process. It asks you a bunch of questions. You could pretty much leave everything on the default, but let me do it with you so I could kind of walk you through it. So here you could see I've already got git bash. So I've already got git. I could type git dash dash version and find out what version I have. I have 2.3.1. It's worth. Okay, so this latest version is 2.3.2. So maybe I should download it. So I'm gonna just click download. Yeah, download this so whenever I do these commands, we use the same bash. Alright, so I'm running the program to install git bash and git and git bash. So there's this check mark here that says only show new options. I'm gonna uncheck that because I want to see all the options. It's only giving me that because I already have it installed. So it's saying I don't have to show you everything you've already seen, but I'll uncheck it so I do see everything because um, I'll see everything you guys are seeing if you're installing it for the first time. So here they've just got some information here. Preamble, terms and conditions. Let's go next. Alright, so select the components you wish to install. I don't need additional icons, so I'll leave that unchecked. Windows Explorer integration. We want git bash here, so and git GUI here. So this command, when I right click and I could do this, I could uncheck this if I don't want that, but I'll leave it there because I like being able to just right click and do that. Associate.git configuration with the default text editor. Associate.sh files to be run with bash. Remember, sh was like a shell, was a shell interpreter. So if you have a file in that shell language, it'll open it with bash. So pretty much I'll leave the bottom two unchecked and the top one these two unchecked. So just the default, and I'm gonna click next. All right, now it's asking choose the default editor used by Git. Which editor would you like Git to use? Um, so it has Visual Studio option here as Git's default editor, and I like using Visual Studio. So, and I think it's the default too, or at least if you have Visual Studio installed. So I would leave it on use Visual Studio Code as Git's default editor. Um, It says use this option to let Git use Visual Studio Code as its default editor. So in Git, you could run a command to edit some code, and then if you do, it'll open Visual Studio Code for you. That's what this is. Adjusting the name of the initial branch in new repositories. What would you like Git to name the initial branch after Git init? So if you just let Git decide, it's just gonna be master. Like these branches that I was talking about, they have names. So this is the master branch. Master. You might also it might also be called main sometimes instead of master. But the master branch is your main branch. Um, that's where your main commits will go. Like the main program, the program that at the end you're going to be launching, right? Um, that's your master branch. If you make additional branches, maybe you create a new feature branch. You could call it new feature if you want. Right, that would be like some additional branch that you're creating. And by the way, somehow Git saves all the information. So, um, say you have a whole website with pictures, images, a bunch of stuff in there. Git has it's gonna keep a record of that in each new commit, and it's also gonna have all of that information in the branch, each new branch that you create. And it's just, I guess it's very good at size management. Like it compresses things, and I guess probably reuses, like if it has similar images files, um, it knows how to reuse it, so it doesn't like make copies and take up unnecessary space. That's why you're able to keep such a long history of all the changes, and you're able to easily undo things if your program crashes or your app is not working. You're going to be able to go back to a previous version, and it's just going to be completely restored. So it's able to save all these versions of your program. Anyway, so you have your master branch, you have your additional branches that you create to work on something new, while other people continue working on the main branch. And then maybe they make their own branches, and then when you're finished with your branch, you can merge it back into the main branch. And then once you've merged it back, you pretty much can delete that branch until you need to create a new branch. Okay, so that's sort of how it works. I'll put a video on YouTube later to explain it better. But anyways, so it's asking what do you want your main branch to be called. So I'm just gonna let Git decide. So it's currently master. So my initial branch is gonna be called master. I'll just click next. Um, and it gives you this option: override the default branch name for new repositories. Many teams have already renamed their branches. Common choices are main, trunk, and development. I don't know why that's an issue, just, changing the name, but leave it as master. Um, how would you like to use Git from the command line? Use Git from Git bash only. Is the most cautious choice as your path will not be modified. You will only be able to use the Git command line tools from Git bash. Or I could do Git command or Git from the command line and also from third-party software recommended. It's recommended, so let's just click that and move on. Which SSL TLS library would you like Git to use? Um, I don't know what this is, so I'll just leave it on the default and click next. How should Git treat line endings in text files? Um, Alright, for this one, you should leave it on this one definitely, on checkout window style. So there's an issue with, um, like if you have lines of text, let's say echo this, echo that. Um, well, actually, it would make more sense if I type this into a document. So I'm gonna cd into desktop, and I'm gonna um, make. Let's just create a file echo hello.txt, and let's type something into hello.txt. So I'm gonna type echo hello world in. Actually, I don't know if I need to put quotes on this. I think it'll work if I just type hello world. I don't have to put it in quotes. Echo hello world into hello.txt, and let's open hello.txt. Where did it place that file? Should be on my desktop somewhere. I don't see it. There. Oops. Echo. I didn't do the arrow thing. Echo hello world into hello.txt. There it is. Okay, so I created this text file with one line in it, and then if I type in again hello world, this time I'll use double arrows to add a new line. Now there's two lines, but anyways, this end of the line in Windows and Linux and Mac might be a different hidden character. So you don't see it, but there's actually like a um, something there. In Windows, I think it's carriage return line. Let me see, go back here. So CRLF, I forgot what LF stands for, but CR is carriage return, and then LF is some other character. So Mac and Linux use one, and then Windows uses the other. So whenever you save your file on Windows and then someone downloads it on a Mac, since they use different characters, it could cause problems. So this option basically says whenever you save this, and just save it as the way that Mac and Linux understand. That way, everyone uses the same line ending character, so you don't have problems. So that's why I leave that on the top one. Next, that's if you're on a Windows, of course. If you're on a Mac, it's already gonna be the correct one. So, um, and then this one, which terminal emulator would you want to use? Okay, so again, terminal emulator would be this command line interface, whether it's this kind of box or if it's this git bash kind of box. What emulator do you want to use? Um, I had it before on use min tty. the default terminal of MSYS2. But I changed it to this one, Windows default console window. Again, that's just the emulator, the window. It doesn't affect the language. It's still gonna be using Bash, so it doesn't really matter which one you use. I just switched to this one because this one was very, I don't know, for me it was kind of glitchy. I was having overlapping text and stuff. I didn't know what was wrong with it until I tried installing it again, this time using the Windows default console window, and now I don't have that issue. So I'll continue using this one, but you could use either one. Choose the default behavior of git pull. What should git pull do? Git pull is how you, if let's say you have a main branch, and by the way, they call this a distributed version control system because multiple people have the entire repository on their computers, or um, so you're gonna have, most likely you're gonna have like one on the cloud, one entire main branch on the cloud that you could download to on your own computer, right? Like this could be um, hosted on GitHub or something, right? Like that's GitHub. It's a cloud service. They've got all your files for your company, whoever's working on that program. It's hosting all these things here. When you do a pull, git pull, let's say you start with like an empty, um, you have your own empty folder here, but you do a pull or a clone. A clone is basically copying stuff um, from GitHub or your remote directory. Pull just takes your, well, it wouldn't pull this one. It would pull your latest changes. Actually, no, it would pull the entire thing. When you do a git pull, you don't just get the head of the branch. You get the entire thing. You get the latest changes, but you also get a history of all the previous changes. So you could always go back in time, even if you're downloading it from there. So that's why it's called distributed version control system. Everyone has an entire copy of what's going on, right? So usually you pull to your local machine, you work on it here, you make some commits, add on to it, make another commit, make some changes. Um, After I make a bunch of changes, I do a push. Instead of a pull, you do a push, and you basically change this, you upload this whole thing um, to GitHub. So now GitHub has the latest chain of history of your file changes. And then someone else can um, pull it. Another computer can pull it. Someone else could download it. Team member, they'll download the entire thing from here. And then they can make additional changes. Add more to this. More commits, and then push it up again to GitHub. Add whatever latest commits you did. Add that there. And then continue working. But a push is you pushing to your remote server or wherever you're storing your your backup. You're gonna need a remote because you're gonna want to download from somewhere because you don't always take your files with you everywhere. But if you store it on GitHub or Bitbucket or some other cloud service, then it's gonna always be available to you. So you can always, you know, go on a new computer and do a git pull, and then you do a pull and you get all the latest stuff from here. When you're done working on it, you push again, push it back up to GitHub, and then you can, go home and then pull it again and then continue working on it. Um, I don't know. I hope that's making sense. But uh, so default behavior of git pull. So what is it saying? What should git pull do by default? There's a standard of git pull. Fast forward the current branch to the fetched branch. when possible. Otherwise, create a merge commit. I'll just leave this on the default. I wouldn't change it. And this is, I guess, more advanced Git stuff. Choose a credential helper. I have no idea. We'll keep it on the default. Enable file system caching. Why not? I'll just do that. Provide significant performance boost. So yeah, why not? Enable experimental support for pseudo consoles. This allows running native console programs like Node or Python in a Git bash window without using. Okay, we don't know anything about that, so we won't enable it. We'll just say next. And then you can install. And remember, when I did a Git bash here, and I checked my Git dash dash version, I've got 2.3.1 Windows.1. Install. Oh, I've got something open I need to close. Uh, at least those applications in the list that marked as closing required. Got what? Bash. Thought I closed it, didn't I? Refresh. I don't know if where it's saying. Maybe, oh, there. See, I've got bash open right here in my VS Code. I need to close that. And refresh. Now I can install. Okay, so you could, I don't know, view the release notes, or you could click launch git bash and it should pop up. So same thing I had, just a new version. Git dash dash version. There's not gonna be much difference from 2.3.1 to 2.3.2, but now it says 2.3.2 since I just downloaded the latest version from here. So if you just downloaded, you should also have that version if you're downloading it on Windows. So I think on Mac or something, Linux, it might have a different version, who knows. But for this, it's gonna be 2.3.2. Okay, any questions so far? Are you guys able to install it? By the way, Darwin and Keith, are you guys using Windows or Mac? Is anyone using a Mac? So, are you able to, like, is it still relevant what I'm talking about? Is it making sense with the Mac? The commands should be the same, right? You just have to use your terminal. Okay, good. Um, well, hopefully the rest of the stuff I show you, you're able to also follow along. We have 10 minutes left. Um, I'm gonna show you how to create your own remote, like, uh, remember I talked about pushing to GitHub, but you could also create like an empty folder on your own computer that you can uh, use as a remote server. So you can use push and pull to move stuff from like one folder to another, and then you could pretend your one folder is like the remote directory, and then your other folders are um, the local ones. So we get some practice uh, pushing and pulling, making commits. So we'll be creating a local one and a local two, and then a remote, and we'll create something, make a file in here. We will push it to the remote, and then from the local second local, we will pull it and then make changes and then push it back to the remote and then pull it from the local one. So we'll do some practice like that without actually having to use GitHub yet. Eventually, we'll replace this fake remote folder with actual GitHub. But let's watch a video on Git. Maybe they'll explain some of this stuff that I'm talking about a little bit better with their graphics. Git tutorial. Well, I don't want to do a Git tutorial. I want to do Git explained. We want to understand the concept of it, not exactly the commands yet. Let's see if this works. It's a very short video, so let's try this.
Git, a system for...
You can't hear this. I gotta put it in watch together. So let's just watch this and we'll take a break.
Git, a system...
Invite friends, copy, paste. So let's meet together on watch together. So click the link if you wanna watch the video. Not this one. What is this? Okay, I left the room, but I can go back to it. There we go. Anyone have the... Here, let me copy it. Paste. Alright, this video.
for keeping track of changes that happen across a set of files. Git, a system for keeping track of changes that happen across a set of files. Open a directory on your local system with an editor like VS Code. Then run git init from the command line. You just created a Git repository or repo. It lives in this hidden Git directory and keeps track of all the changes that happen to these files. As you work on a codebase, you take snapshots or commits of the current state of these files. Every commit has a unique ID and is linked to its parent, and this means we can travel back in time to a previous version of our files. Notice how our source control icon is lit up. Currently, all of our files are untracked because we need to add them to the repo. Run git add to include or stage these files in the repo, then create a snapshot of their current state by running git commit along with a message about what you did to these files. Congratulations, you just created the first commit on the head of the master branch in this repo. The changed files disappeared and you're now on a clean working directory. The head represents the most recent commit. If we make some changes, commit them to the repo, the head moves forward, but we still have a reference to our previous commit so we can always go back to it. But the thing about software is that it's developed in a nonlinear fashion. You might have multiple teams working on different features for the same codebase simultaneously. Git makes that possible by branching. Create one by running git branch, and then run git checkout to move into that branch. You can now safely work on your feature in this branch without affecting the code or files in the master branch. The commits you make here live in an alternate universe with its own unique history. At some point though, you'll likely want to merge this history with the history in the master branch. When you're ready, go back to the master branch by running git checkout. Then run git merge on your alternate universe. The tip of your feature branch now becomes the head of the master branch. Or in other words, our fragmented universe has become one. Unless you ran into a merge conflict, in which case you'll just have to wait for the sequel. This has been Git explained in 100 seconds. If you want to see more short videos like this, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you.
Yeah, so he mentioned what I was mentioning. He also says that you call the tip of the main branch the head. I guess that might come up. You might have to uh, use that name for the head. But let's take a break. I don't know. That video was too short. Didn't really explain much. It just said the same thing I did. We'll take a break. Maybe I'll find a better explanation, or we'll just jump into it and start um, doing our git commands, and then you'll get the hang of it. No, no, no. I don't want to make you install Windows. It should still be similar. I mean, you could still create directories on a Mac. So, um, do you have Git Bash, Keith? When you download Git on a Mac, does it also give you Git Bash, or you don't need it because it's already using Bash commands? If it is, then I guess you could just do this in the terminal. You don't have to use Git Bash. Also, if you have VS Code, um, it's possible to change the terminal to Bash. If you open your terminal, I think if you configure terminal settings, um, somewhere here, it should give you the option to change your default terminal. Um, Not sure where the option is for that. I think it's, see, terminal integrated automation shell Linux. Path that when set will override terminal.integrated shell.linux. And there's one for OS X and Windows. I think for me, I do it in edit JSON settings here. Um, and then there's this terminal integrated shell.windows, and that's pointing to Bash over here. So I'm guessing under terminal integrated automation shell OS X, you would click edit in JSON settings, and then also make sure it's pointing to Bash over here. I think that's how you do it, or you might need to figure it out. Here, let's see if there's an explanation on how to do it. I think that's how you do it. Just change the settings.json. Oh, it's still terminal, integrate shell, Windows, git bash. So yours might say something else since you're not on Windows. But change VS Code terminal to bash. Or I guess if you're on a Mac, you don't have to do that. It's already using bash.
Let's install Git Bash into Visual Studio Code. If you're familiar with, make Visual Studio Code the
Or it's also,
default editor,
I think whenever I
in which we're using Git for.
installed it, it might have been done through there by default.
but we can go order, and that's where
Not sure. I installed VS Code a long time ago, and I think I changed this a long time ago. But yeah, it's in this video he's saying the same thing. Terminal.integrated shell.windows. Gotta point it to bash. But on a Mac, VS Code, default, terminal, git bash. Let's see if it comes up. So this might not make sense looking it up for Mac. I think all of these examples, they're doing it on Windows, because on a Mac, I guess you don't have to do it. Or you could get git bash here on Mac OS X too. There's a video on that. But again, I don't think it's necessary. We just need to be able to run these commands. So just to test it, open up your VS Code and then open the terminal. You could go terminal, new terminal, or there's a shortcut. For me, it's Control Shift plus. Actually, Control Shift plus tilde, not tilde, backslash. Tilde, backslash, or not backslash, what do you call that? It's a backwards quote. But it's the same button as the tilde. So if I press Control Shift tilde, it brings it up. Backtick, that's what you call it. So Control Shift backtick or Control Shift tilde brings up the terminal, and on a Mac it's probably a Command Shift or something. And then you should be able to type git dash dash version to see if it's in there. If you can make git commands, as long as it gives you something, it doesn't say unknown command or whatever, then you should be able to use this. And also try it in the default Mac terminal. Try git dash dash version, see if it got installed and if you can run git commands. And then Darwin, I know you said you had internet problems, but are you back? Anyways, if you're ready to follow along, hopefully, let's create, we'll create an empty Git repository. I'll show you how to create an empty one that you can use as a remote. Because you can't use a regular, I'll show you right now. So let's start by creating a new folder, and then let me see if I can increase the font size here so you could see better. Font, let's increase that to like 24. Is that easier to read, or should I go bigger? What's this? Requires a command line developer tool. Would you like to install the tools? No. Yeah, why not? Click install, see if we can do it. I'm not sure how to, let me see, properties, colors, selected screen colors. I could try picking brighter colors, maybe, like instead of the green color here. No, I clicked that and it did something else. We'll leave that screen color black. We cancel and do that again. Colors. I guess it's already set to black background. Screen text. I've got white. Well, it's kind of gray. Let's change that to just brighter white. Can we do that? Let me cancel. What was it on? Properties, colors, screen text. It looks like this gray color is selected. I'm not sure. If I click this, what happens? Oh, okay, it's slightly brighter now. But how about these other colors? Screen text, pop-up text. I think the pop-up text is that purple one. So what if we go brighter with that? This, oh, that didn't change. What about pop-up background? White? Nope. Nope, that's definitely not what I wanted to do. Okay. Make that white again. I'll just make it a little bit bigger. Properties, font, let's go 28. When I type it, at least that's white, so you should be able to see what I'm typing. So that's what's important. I don't know how to change these though. I tried changing it gives me the option to change screen text and pop-up text. But I tried changing the pop-up text to this brighter pink and it didn't make any difference on this, so. Anyways, 8 hours, 23 minutes? What is that? Jeez. Wait, so when you typed Git on the terminal on the Mac, it didn't understand it? Command line. Are you using VS Code or Visual Studio? That's weird that it would take that long. I mean, VS Code is a small program. I mean, I download the whole thing with the terminal ready. Or if it's gonna be like that, then I guess don't use the integrated VS Code terminal. Just use your default Mac terminal to do these commands. Oh, really? It doesn't understand Git, but you installed Git, right? That's not good. Let me YouTube Git commands Mac, not Max Mac.
Start with Git on a Mac. So what you have to do is we have to go to your terminal and say git space hyphen hyphen version.
Let me put this on watch together so you could watch it too. This guy might explain how to do it. Let me use that room that I created earlier. You might still have it open. We'll just stay in this room.
Hello and welcome to this session on Git and GitHub. This is the second session and today we will start with installing Git and adding our files and the
Okay, let's fast
changes,
forward.
and then
Download
we
and
will add
install
our
Git, sign
repository
up,
to
create
GitHub.
account.
Begin and let us see. Step number one is we have to check if Git is already installed. So because I'm on Mac, I will go to my
So
terminal,
you already checked if it's
and in case you
installed
are on
and it
Windows, I
wasn't,
will
right?
have a separate session on getting started with Git and GitHub on
At
Windows.
least you have
On this session, I will install and
very
start
fast
with Git
internet.
on a Mac. So what you have to do is we have to go to your terminal and say git space hyphen hyphen version. Okay, now in my case, because Git is already installed, I am getting this Git version. In case it is not installed, you will get will later as well, but because we want to add our username and our email, we will first create an account on GitHub.
Okay, he's just skipping the part after installing it and talking about other stuff. Let me see. Talking about GitHub already, so
File for tracking, it is showing us that this file is added being tracked, and to track we have to use git add. Okay,
okay, no,
so
I
the
don't think this
next
is gonna help.
command
But if
git
this is working,
add.
then
So what I
hopefully
will
that
do is
once that's finished downloading, you can follow.
I will say git add and the file name. Now again let us go to git status and see what is the
Why am I
status
still
now,
hearing it?
and now you can see this is in green, right? So this is now being tracked, but still it is not commit.
Oh. Also check if you have Xcode. You might need to use Xcode. I don't know. See, this is why I need to use Mac more often, so I know what the differences are when you're doing things like this. Git command on Mac. I remember hearing that or reading somewhere that Git is already there on the Mac. You don't even need to install it. Or no, you would need to install it for sure. At least the latest version, but should be some resources here. Easiest way to set up Git is to use Git installer for Mac. Open browser, navigate to Git's official website, install, and then follow installation. Install Git on Mac using. There are multiple ways to install Git on Mac via terminal. Install Git using Xcode. If you prefer the terminal, using Xcode is the fastest and easiest way to start working with Git. Its command line tools include Git in the package. Users who don't have Xcode install it with a single command. So Xcode -select --install. If you in the terminal, I think you could do that. With Xcode running on your Mac, you could check whether Git is also available by prompting git -version. If you do not have Git, it automatically asks whether you want to install it. Okay, that sounds pretty easy. Try that. Anyways, let me know when you're ready, Keith. Or if you're close to ready. Oh, it's tiny. I can't see. It's very tiny. Well, what is it saying? Oh, 2 minutes? Okay, but did you see this link here? It says, all you have to do is, if you have Xcode, if you prefer the terminal, using Xcode is the fastest and easiest way to start working with Git. So you just type in Xcode -select -install. And then with Xcode running, you type git -version. And then if you type that, if you don't have it, it's gonna prompt you to install it. And then you could just install it through there. And then it should be the same, all these commands. We're all gonna use the same commands. Git init, git status, git add, git commit. So the rest of that should be the same. Alrighty, so can you try typing git -version, see if it gives you a version. See if you can do, just create a empty folder and type git init, see if that does something. I don't know if you have to unhide the directories in a Mac, but when you do a git init, it should create a hidden directory on a Windows anyway. It's gonna be an empty folder, or not an empty folder. It's gonna be a hidden folder named .git when you type git init. So I'm gonna open git bash. I'm on my desktop, and I'm gonna make dir. I'm gonna call it git. Just call it a git lesson. Okay, so that's good. Okay, I guess that means you should be able to run git commands now. Alright, so let's make a directory called git lesson. I'm just gonna make it on my desktop. So it's just gonna create this folder called git lesson. And we're gonna let's make 3 other directories in here. I'm gonna do a make dir, and I'm gonna call it remote. And I'm gonna do another make dir. I'm gonna call this one local1. Make another directory. This one I'll call local2. By the way, I think you could even do make dir local1, local2. Well, I already have it, so let's say local 3 and 4. I already have it. Clear. Oh, I typed 4 twice. Oops. Anyway, let me delete those. What do I have in here? Oh, I didn't. Oh, okay. They're remote, local. Put these. Let's delete these actually. I made these all on my desktop. Anyway, so I have git lesson. So I'm gonna cd into git lesson. Okay, and I type ls to see a list of files and folders in here, and it shows me nothing. So it's telling me that it's empty. So now I will, while I'm inside git lesson, desktop git lesson, I'm gonna do make dir. We'll do one remote, one called local1, and one called local2. So that should, inside my git lesson folder, now I have local1, local2, and remote. I'm not sure if you need to include an extra command like .p or something to be able to create 3 folders at the same time. But for me, I just type each folder name one after the other. It's separated by spaces, and it just makes all 3 folders for me. So now if I ls, we see I have local1, local2, and remote. I'm going to treat remote as the remote Git repository. That's going to be like if I was using GitHub to store my files on the cloud. But instead of using GitHub, I'm just going to be using this remote folder here. And then local1 will just pretend that's one user, and then local2 could be another user, or could be me on different computers, maybe at home and maybe at the office. That could be local1 and local2. But remote would be like my cloud that I'm pushing everything to. Okay. Right now, they're not Git repositories. Right now, they're just empty folders. Okay. To initiate, to create a Git repository in these folders, I have to cd into them. So like start with local1, or I'm in local2. If I do ls, there's nothing in here. We do ls -- help. We can see some commands here, like -a. Will list everything. I think it will include hidden folders. But I'm gonna do it's still empty right now. I haven't created anything here. I'm inside local2. Let me go back to local1 so it makes more sense. cd -- local1. I'm in the local1 folder. Again, it's an empty folder, but if you want to initiate a Git repository, you say git init. Okay, and it says initialized empty Git repository in here. And if I do a ls, it's still not going to show it because it's hidden. But I think if I do ls a, then it shows there's actually a folder in there called .git. If you have your see, I'm in local 1 right now, and I can see it, but if I had hidden items unchecked here, I wouldn't see it. It looks empty, but I've turned on hidden items so I can actually see it. If I open it, you can see just a bunch of stuff here. This is all the files and the folders that Git needs to work. So you don't need to do anything with these. You could, that's why it's hidden, because you're not meant to do anything to that folder. So, but now this is actually a Git repository. So I can do Git commands in this folder. So I'm going to do the same in local 2. I'll cd // to get out of local 1 and go into local 2. And I will type git init here as well. Initialized Git repository in local 2. Okay, but for the remote one, you're not going to do git init, because then it won't be a remote repository that you can push to. Actually, it might be possible. I don't know. But usually I do. Let's cd back out of here. I'm in the main folder with remote there, so I will cd into remote. But you're gonna want to do a git init --bear inside remote. So for the remote folder, do git init --bear. Okay. So in local 1 and local 2, I've got that Git folder that's hidden, and then in remote, I've got the same stuff that's in that Git folder. So now I can use this remote as the remote repository that I'll be pushing stuff to and pulling stuff from. Okay, so did you guys create those 3 folders and initiate the 3 Git repositories? Okay, you should have 3 folders, and you should navigate into the folder before doing a git init. Don't do a git init on the desktop. So if you did a git init, just show the hidden files on your desktop. I don't know if just turn off hidden hide stuff, and then you could just delete the folder. You just select it and delete it if you see it. Yeah, local 1, local 2, and the remote, just put them all inside a folder called git lesson. So I have git lesson and then local 1, local 2, remote. They're all inside git lesson. I mean, it doesn't matter. They could be random places in your computer, but it's going to be hard to navigate to them because I'm going to be having to navigate to each folder. So if it's just all three together, I just have to do // and move to another folder or just a CD into one of the folders. It's easier to find because they're all together. Again, this is where pretending this remote is like GitHub, the website that you. So GitHub, all GitHub is a place to push repositories. Um, so it's just a place that you can push to. So think of GitHub as this folder right here. This is all it is, this remote folder. But the website itself, GitHub, it has like tools and like it lets you interact with your Git stuff. So I could do stuff like, right click here to get a link to my GitHub, and then use that to push to it. I can see my master branch here. What else? We can add a README file. It's just a user interface for interacting with your Git stuff. It's a website to store it and lets you see what files you've got up there. But that's all it is. It's a place that it has this stuff in there and lets you do Git commands and push to that repo. Yeah, I'll do this again just from the beginning. I'm gonna delete this, Git lesson. I've got it open somewhere. Let's close this, try again. Okay, so from the top, we're gonna open up Git bash. Let me close my extra windows here I've got. Okay, so you see I'm on the desktop, right? It says desktop up here. If I do ls, it's gonna list all my stuff that I've got on the desktop. And I'm just gonna type clear to clear all that. Or you could type cls if you're on the. If clear doesn't work, try cls to clear it. Oh, never mind. In this one, we have to type clear. If you're on the Windows default terminal, you'll have to type cls. So clear to clear it, and then I'm on the desktop. I'm gonna make dir, mkdir. Gonna call it git lesson. So that creates a folder called git lesson. You can see it right here. It just created that. And then I'm gonna cd into that folder. So cd and then the name of the folder, git lesson. And you could, if you type cd and you start typing the name of the folder and press tab, git lesson and press tab. If there's no other folder there that starts with git, it'll just auto complete for you. Okay, so now I'm inside git lesson. So cd git lesson puts me inside git lesson. And then while I'm inside git lesson, I'll do make dir, and I'll say local 1 space local 2 space remote. So this will create 3 folders inside my git lesson folder called local 1, local 2, and remote. You can also do them separately. You could do make dir local 1 and then make dir local 2. So I've got the 3 folders again. And I'm going to how to go back out of a folder, dot dot forward slash cd dot dot forward slash. So if I type that, now I'm back on the desktop. If I do cd git lesson, I'm back inside the git lesson folder. So it's just like in when you're doing HTML, CSS, you're navigating, you're linking to your style sheets, dot dot forward slash gets out of the folder. Next, we're gonna, okay, I'm already inside git lesson folder. If I do ls, I can see my 3 folders in there, local 1, local 2, and remote. And I'm gonna do a cd local 1. So now I'm inside local 1, one of the 3 folders. And in here, I'll do a git init. Okay, so it's gonna say initialized empty git repository in C users, desktop, git lesson, local 1. And then I'm gonna cd back out of there, and this time cd into local 2 and do the same thing, git init. So in local 1 and local 2, you'll do a git init. So remember to cd into the folder before you do git init. Okay, let me know when you did those two. For remote, we're not going to do git init. We're going to do git init -- bear. So I'll do that in a second when you're ready. And if you mess up, just delete the folders and do it again. You can also remove, you can delete stuff through here too. Just type remove and then the name of the file, or remove dir, the name of the folder. Like if I do a remove, where am I right now? I'm in the local 2 folder. Like it's really tiny. I can't. It's useless sending me that screenshot. Can't see it. But is everything good, or is there a problem? Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna cd out of the local 2 folder back into the git lesson folder. Initialize git repository, desktop, git lesson, remote, cd dot dot. Oh, you did the remote bear already, and then you did the local 1, and then the local 2. Okay, I think you're ready. Okay, so I didn't do the remote yet, so I'm in the git lesson. So now I'll do cd into remote, and in this one I'll do a git init -- bear. Okay, and then at this point you should have these hidden git folders in local 1 and local 2, and then remote will just have all the stuff that you see in these git folders, in the hidden folders. It's just going to be visible right there inside the remote folder. Okay. All right. So we have our git repositories. Let's cd into local 1. Okay. So I'm back in local 1. Right now it's empty except for that hidden git folder that we don't need to mess with. We don't need to touch it. So if you do ls -a, you could see it, but we're not gonna mess with that folder. Let's create well, actually, before we create anything, if you type git status, you're gonna see here that it says on branch master, no commits yet, nothing to commit. It says create copy files and use git add to track. Okay, so it tells you what you need to do if you're trying to start use git. We're on the branch master, and remember when I was installing git, it asked me what do you want to name your default branch, and it's called master by default. I could have named it whatever I want, but it's called master. That's how I know it's my main branch. It's the master branch. Okay. So we don't have any commits yet. We don't have anything to commit because it's just an empty folder. But if we create a file now, I'm gonna say echo, and I'll just type hello. Just type hello, echo hello, and then put one arrow pointing to the right, and give it a file name. File1.txt. So echo hello arrow file1.txt, and that should create something called file1.txt with hello inside. And by the way, you could read the contents of that file if you type cat, not car, cat file1.txt. It tells me what's written and what's the contents of that file. So cat file1.txt gives you the content of that. Now if we do git status, we can see that we have an untracked file. Use git add file to include what will be committed. So this file one, it's in red. It hasn't been added to our staging area. So before you commit, you add files to a staging area. Okay, and then you review them, and when you're ready to commit, make it part of your master branch, the head of the master, your latest updates. That's when you commit it. So I just created a file1.txt with hello in there, and now I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say git add the name of the file, like it tells me here. So git add, I could do file1.txt. You can also do a git add dot to just add everything. Okay, now if I do git status, now it says changes to be committed. And again, it tells you what you need to do. If you wanted to remove it anyways, it tells you type git rm -- cached and then the file name to unstage it, to get it out of the staging area. But we don't need to do that. We want to commit it. Okay. So to commit the change, I'm gonna say git commit. And then when you commit, when you make commits, it's helpful to have a message of what changes did you make, right? Because you're working with other people. So when you make a commit, your head of your repository, head of your Git branch, your main branch, your master branch, it's going to have some changes in there, and you want to tell people what are these latest changes that you added there, right? Because after you commit, that's when you usually push it to the remote repository, and other people can download it, and then they're going to want to see the history of this project. And whenever you leave these commit messages, like well, I should have done a initial commit before adding the file, but let's just call this the initial commit. So that's my first commit. So that's my message for that. So now that I've done that, I can do a git status again to check the status. It says I'm on the master branch and there's nothing to commit. Working tree clean. So at this point, you can do a this is when you're gonna want to push it to that master. I mean, not the master. This is when you're gonna want to push file 1. We're gonna want to push it to the remote, and then download it from local 2. Okay, so let me know if you did the commit, initial commit, and all that's working okay. And I'll show you how to push this to the remote repository. So we're pushing it to GitHub, pretend. Actually, we missed a step. Type, what does that say? Oh, well, yeah, it might give you some extra messages, um, but yeah, it's still doing the same thing, so. Nothing to commit, working tree clean. That's the important part. Okay. Now, we also, when you're working on a project in Git, usually you have to have a username and an email so people know who's making the changes and stuff. If you type git config dash list, it will give you a bunch of information about this Git repository and who's working on it. And at the very least, there should be a user.name and a user.email. Git commit dash, yeah, that's right, yeah. And then press enter. So after you do your commit, do a, what did I just type? Git config dash list to see all the configuration data for your Git right now. And look for username and user.email. You probably don't have it though because you never set it. So I'm gonna type Q to get out of there because I'm gonna type in git config and then I'm gonna say well, you could type in dash help, and for me it brings up this web page and it tells me what I could do with this git config. It says get and set repository or global options. Okay, we're gonna want to set our username and password through this. So global just means it's gonna set the global username and email for whoever's using this computer, or it's not the whole computer actually, it's the current drive. So I'm on the C drive, so for my C drive, under users, under David, that's my default user here. If you're on a Windows anyway, there should be a file called git config here that's gonna have all that information that you can set. Let me see if I could open this with Notepad. Yeah, so you can see some of that information in here. It says name, instructor D, email, and there's my email. So you could manually type it in that git config folder, or you can do git config dash global user dot name, let's say David, and then now if I do git config dash list, it'll tell me user.name is now David instead of instructor D, what it was before. So if I check my users folder right now, see users, David, git config. Now instead of instructor D, it says name equals David. So you can set your username and email that same way. Okay, and you can see here I got this colon and typing in random stuff. I have to press Q to actually get out of that so I could get back to normal. I'm gonna type clear. So you're gonna type git config -- global user.name and then give yourself a username. I'm gonna keep it as instructor D, and then git config user.email, and then you can type in your email address there. Okay, so I'll just clear that. And then I think if you type git config user.name, it'll just tell you your username, or git config user.email. Oops, git config, not confi. It'll give you your email. Okay. So try adding your username and email and then checking if it actually added. Okay, yeah, so it's working for you. You haven't done the initial commit. So before you do a commit, you do a git add and then a dot for all. And then you do a git commit -m and then give it a message. So if I type git status right now, I've already committed, so it's gonna say nothing to commit, working tree clean. So we do the commit after we do the add. So after we add our file or make some change, we do a git add all, git add dot, or just git add and then the file name. After you add, then you do a git commit with the message. So again, git commit -m and then type something like initial commit for your first commit. Now if I try to do it now, it's going to say nothing to commit. It says author unknown when you typed what? What did you type that it said author unknown? Oh, okay. I guess for you, it wants you to set your username and email first. It tells you right here, please tell me who you are. Run git config -- global user.email and then git config -- global user.name. I did it in the reverse order, but I mean, that's because I already had a username and email. So so right now you need to do git config -- global and then user.name, and then put your name just like that, and then do the same thing but for email, and put your email address in there. User.name, and then just type your name, Darwin, or whatever you want your username to be, and then press enter. And then do the same thing for email. Just instead of user.name, put user.email. Then it should let you do a commit. So it wasn't letting you do a commit because there was no username, no email, so it needed that information to save it in the commit. So when people look up the history of the project, they can see who made that commit. But since you didn't have it, I guess that's why it wasn't letting you. Okay, so did you do the commit? Okay. All right, so we made our commit. We defined our username and email. Do we push yet? No, we didn't do the push yet. So now we can, again, where am I right now? I'm inside my local one folder. I'm on the master branch. By the way, if you type git branch, you can see that it's going to say master and a little star next to it. When you type git branch, it shows you all your branches that you have currently. Right now, I just have master, so it's just that one, and the star indicates that I'm on that right now, and the green color. So now we want to push to our remote repository. Okay, we know our remote repository is in this folder here, remote. So we have to define, we have to tell it where our where we're trying to push this main branch to. So we say git remote add origin, and then we put the path to that folder. So if this was GitHub, this is where I would take this link right here and I would paste it in here. Oops. I would paste it in there like that. But since we're not using GitHub, we're just using this folder called remote. I'm just gonna say //remote. So git remote at origin //remote. So now it knows where to push to. Oh, and you could have also done a git remote -v to tell you where your remote was. If you did that before you did the add origin remote, it would have just been blank. But now if you do git remote -v, you'll see it says origin //remote for fetching and origin //remote for pushing. So now it has its remote repository. It knows where to push things to and where to pull it from. Okay. And at this point, we can push to the repository by doing a git push. Just type git push, but you're also gonna need to set, you have to do set dash upstream, and short for that would just be if you put a dash u, would do the same thing as dash dash set dash upstream. When you do that, you're just basically saying like, next time I do git push, don't ask me where to push it, but every time you push, you have to like tell it where you're trying to push to. So we're trying to push it to our remote. So git push dash u, and we're pushing it to our remote. And the remote has to have a name also, and we're just gonna call it origin. That's what normally you'll call it. Failed to push some refs to remote. Ref spec origin does not. Oops. Okay. Git push dash u remote. I think we have to origin master. No. Oh, sorry. We don't put the remote. I think we just do git push origin master. There we go. So do a git push, give it a name, origin, and then which branch you're trying to push. So git push dash u origin master. And you're not gonna really notice anything. I mean, it's not like you're gonna be able to go into remote and see what you did here. It's not gonna show. But you just have to trust that it got pushed. So this file1.txt that says hello, it should now be available on the remote, so that on local 2 we're gonna pull it. Did you guys do that part? Okay, so after we do git push dash u origin master, we can get out of here. Cd forward slash, let me see what that says. Yeah, it looks like okay, it worked. Good. Okay, now let's go to our local 2. So cd into local 2. And do a ls just to confirm that there's nothing in here. It's an empty folder. And do a git remote dash v. And you're gonna see that that remote location that we defined in local 1 is not here anymore. If you go back to local 1 and do that same thing, git remote dash v, you'll see that, oops, forgot the e. You'll see that origin remote, that folder is there for fetching and pushing, but it's not there for our local 2. If we do the same thing here, git remote dash v, it's blank. So here we also have to define our master, or we could do a git clone. Okay, if you look at like GitHub, whenever you're cloning, oh, here it doesn't give me the command, but when you first create a repository, let's say New repository, give it a name, test 1, create repository. It tells me here some of the options. I can create a new repository on the command line, and then it tells you how to push an existing repository, get remote add origin, and then gives you the link to your GitHub. So we could either, I don't know if it makes a difference, but we could do a git. Well, first of all, we need to define our origin. I mean our remote server, because again, this gives us nothing. Get remote v. So we have to say again, get remote add origin, and then // and go to remote. So now if we do git remote -v, this folder again has the tells us where this is. Because remember, I'm pretending this is local 1 is one user, local 2 is a different user or different computer. So they're different repositories. So they have their own remotes. You could change the remote anytime, push to a different repository. So just because I had defined the remote for local 1 doesn't mean I also defined it for local 2. So I had to redo it for local 2 because you're on a completely different repository. So now that it's defined, we have our remote location. We could do a git pull. It's not gonna work if I just do git pull. It's gonna tell me um, bu- 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 actually let me see, did it actually pull it without? No, okay, so it didn't pull anything. It says there is no tracking information for the current branch. Please specify which branch you want to merge with. So I did a git pull, but I didn't say which branch I wanted. It tells you here, do a git pull, and then we want to do origin and master. So git pull origin master. Origin is our remote server nickname. That's what we set it to when we did git remote add origin. We named it origin. So git pull origin master is saying pull from origin, which is again, it's this folder. Origin is a nickname for this remote folder right now, and we want the master branch. Okay, so now it should do it, and it tells you here. It says branch master fetch head, and remember, head is the latest committed branch. So now if I check local 2, you see file 1 got pulled. So we pushed it from local 1 to remote, and then from local 2 we pulled it. So to add the remote, so type git remote -v to see if it's set already. Mine is set, so it's showing me this. If yours is not, it's just going to be black. But to set it, you do git remote add origin, and then the path to the folder. So in this case, it's // remote. But if it was GitHub, you would just pass the link to your GitHub there instead of // remote. If you do git remote add origin, it'll override the last one you did. Like I could change my origin right now to GitHub. I could copy this and then paste it in here. Oops. Insert. So git remote add origin. Oh, I already Okay, I can't use the name origin, so I have to give it a different name. Remember, origin is just a nickname for the branch. I'll call this GitHub. So git remote add GitHub, and then just a link to my GitHub. And now if I do a git status, let's just check. Nothing to commit. Do a git push, and I didn't set the upstream origin here, so it's not gonna know where to push it. So we have to do a git push -u, and then we called our GitHub nickname. We gave it GitHub, so I'm just gonna name it GitHub here, and I want to push the master branch. So if I do this right now, let me real quick refresh this page. You can see it's just an empty repo. I haven't put anything in here yet. So it's just giving me the instructions. But after I do git push up -u GitHub master, and I press enter, it's gonna tell me branch master set up to track remote master from GitHub. Let me refresh this, see if it changes. So now you can see that file 1 that says hello. Now it's on my GitHub. Okay, so I was able to push, instead of to the remote folder here, this time I pushed it to GitHub. But that just shows you that that's really what GitHub is. It's this repository, just like this remote folder here, that you can push stuff to. Let me see where you're stuck. Git remote -v. You okay? It's cause, oh, I see. You gave a different name, origin. I'm not sure how to remove. Might just be git remote remove. Let's try GitHub. So now let me do git remote -v. I think I removed it by just typing git remote remove GitHub. So you could type git remote remove origin. That might work. See, if I try doing a push again to git push to GitHub master. Yeah, GitHub does not appear to be a Git repository. So now it doesn't know what I'm talking about because I did a git remove. So you could just remove it by doing git remove, and then you called it origin. So I would just do that, git remove origin, to get rid of that one if you don't want it saved. So yeah, do git remove and then the name of that, and then do another git remote -v, see if it disappeared. Let me know if it worked. So just like that, git remote remove the name of the branch that you want to, the repository that you want to get rid of. How about Keith? Are you having problems? Okay. And Darwin, did this command work? Git remote remove. Type git remote dash dash help to see what other options we have. Yeah, so you could do remove or rm to remove the remote with whatever name you gave it. So it says it here too in the documentation. But I just guessed that's what it is. Anyways, this is something that um it'll take some practice just using it. I would start using it for personal projects instead of saving stuff on like a OneDrive or um, Google Cloud or something. Start trying to use GitHub for anything like code related, and maybe you'll start getting used to it. But today's just the introduction. Maybe tomorrow we'll do some examples with GitHub. Okay. All right. So we created. What did we do so far? We created a local repository. We defined a remote server, which was this remote folder. We we did a git. Well, we created a file, and then we added it to our staging area. We gave ourselves username and email. Um, we did a commit, and then we did a git remote add origin to tell this repository where we want to push to, and then we did the push to the remote. So we pushed file one to the remote repository, and then it's like we went to a different computer somewhere else, and we had an empty folder called local2 here, and we set up our git repo. We did git remote add origin again to find out where our remote origin is. Um, and then we did our git pull, and we got our file one that we sent to remote one. We picked it up from there, brought it to local2. Okay, the pull part, I'll do it again. I'll create a new folder. So where am I right now? Let's go cd /ls. Okay, so I'm in the main folder again with local1, local2, and remote. Okay, I'm gonna create a new folder, make dir local3. Okay, I created a new folder called local3 now, so I've got a third local folder. I'm gonna cd into local3. And before I can do any git stuff here, I first have to do a git init. Okay, now I can do a git config -v. Or sorry, I pushed the wrong button. Git config --list. So it tells me information about this Git repository. We see that my username is already set up. I've got user.name, user.email in there somewhere, so I don't need to do that. But if I did need to, I would do a git config --global again to set up my username and email. User.name, I would set it like that, and then user.email, and then something at something.com. But we already have our global stuff. If you're working in the same C folder, it should already be set up. Because again, for every drive that you have that you're working in, when I did, that's why we did global. That's why when I did git remote dash dash or git config dash dash global, we're setting like our default global user for the current user that is working on this computer. So there should be no need to update that username and email again. The first time was enough. Unless you're on a different computer, then you'd have to do it again. Or if I move to like the D drive instead of the C drive, I probably have to do it again because all that information that I saved would go under users and it would be saved somewhere on that drive. So let's clear that. So in local 3, I did a git init to initialize the Git repository, and I already have my username set up. Now I just need to see if my remote is set up. I'm gonna do git remote -v, and we see that I don't have it set up, so now I have to add it. So git remote add, and then we're calling it origin. So again, origin is just a nickname. You could call it banana if you wanted. And then for every remote, every computer that you work on, you could name it whatever you want. It doesn't have to be called origin, but that's just like what people usually use. But this one I'll say git remote add banana, and I'll say where is that banana? It's in /remote. Okay, so after giving it a nickname and telling it where that remote is, press enter. Now if I do a git remote -v, now we can see I have a remote called banana, and that's in /remote. So now if I want to pull from that banana, I'll do a git pull, and I want to pull from banana, so I give the name git pull banana. And what do I want to pull? I want to pull the master branch. Okay, so git pull banana master. Did it work? Did it work? I think it worked because it's showing me these arrows and stuff. Let's see. Local 3, there's file 1. Yeah, so it worked. So does that help? And then if you want to remove, so again, git remote -v shows me a list of, or tells me what remote branches I have. I've got banana, so I'm gonna remove it now. So I'll do a git remote. I think you don't have to type remove. You could just type rm. I think that's what the documentation said. Let me see. Double dash help. You should be able to use rm instead of remove. It should do the same thing. Git remote rm banana. Okay, now if I do git remote -v, we could see it's empty again. Cool. I hope that makes sense. Now you know a lot more about Git than you did before. We'll try to use it since there's only 2 of you in this class. Maybe I'll make you collaborate on an assignment. One of you does one section of a website, the other one does the other. Work together. We'll try to do some branching and merging. Anyways, end of class. So let me get you the sign out code. Also for lab people, I didn't really, I don't know, I didn't really make like special time for lab questions, but um, just remember you could always like message me if you have any questions during lab. I'll pause and help you guys too. Okay, let me stop streaming so I can look at my sign out code and stop recording.